Hello, everyone. My name is Andre Hampshire. In today's discussion, we're going to be studying the first writing passage from the SAT practice test number 1, and you can find this test on College Board's website. This first passage is called Way to Go. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and begin. Greek yogurt, a strange form of cultured yogurt, has grown enormously in popularity in the United States since it was first introduced in the country in the late 1980s. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to reduce the text to a state of being that is as simple as it can possibly be. So the first question that we have to ask ourselves is, what is this about so far? Well, this has to be about Greek yogurt. And there are two things that are being said about Greek yogurt. The first thing that's being said about Greek yogurt is that it is a strange form of cultured yogurt. The second thing that's being said about Greek yogurt is that it has grown in popularity. In the United States. So that's it. We've reduced that introduction into a very simple state of being, and we can see this diagrammatically here. Now the question is, which one of these two ideas is going to be developed? Is it going to be one or the other, or is it going to be both? The only way to know that something truly functions as a topic sentence is to continue to read in order to determine whether or not those ideas are developed. However, grammatically speaking, we can kind of speculate about which one of these two ideas is going to be discussed based on the structural presentation of the text. We see here that component number 1 is offset by an open dash and a closed dash, whereas component number 2 contains the predicate image. Now, I'll do a separate lesson to discuss modifiers and predicates in their own right. But for now, this is a sort of conceptual understanding about how we can kind of guess what the main idea of this is going to be. Since this is a predicate, we can kind of guess that this is going to be the main aspect of the discussion. In other words, we're going to disregard the strange form of cultured yogurt part, and we can just do this in red, and we're really going to focus on the fact that Greek yogurt has grown in popularity. Let's see if our supposition is correct. From 2011 to 2012 alone, sales of Greek yogurt in the US increased by 50%. So as it turns out, we are correct. This is discussing the growth of Greek yogurt in terms of popularity and in terms of sales in the United States alone. The resulting increase in Greek yogurt production has forced those involved in the business to address the detrimental effects that the yogurt making process may be having on the environment. So this is interesting because the idea of the growth in popularity was just an introduction. It is not really the main point because we've transitioned into a new discussion. What's the point of this? Well, because of this, something has happened. Environmental issues have arisen as a result of the growth in popularity of Greek yogurt in the country. So we've recontextualized the discussion from an environmental perspective, an environmentalist perspective. And remember from a previous discussion, and again, you can refer to older lessons as well, and I'll post more lessons on context too. But what context does is it limits the range of discussion that's possible. It's kind of like having a box with a label on it. Suppose you have a kitchen box and you're putting kitchen items inside of that box. Certain items are allowed into that box, whereas irrelevant items are excluded from it. So we know that this entire discussion is going to be centered about environmental issues that arise from production of Greek yogurt. Anything that does not fit within this context can be immediately disregarded. And you will have questions about this throughout the passage, as you will see. So let's continue. The resulting increase in Greek yogurt production has forced those involved in the business to address the detrimental effects that the yogurt making process may be having on the environment. So this raises two questions. What are the detrimental effects that this process has? And what are some of the efforts being made by those involved in the business to tackle these environmental issues? So if we go back to our sketch again, we can kind of do something similar to this, where we can put two subsets here. Now, are we going to develop both or one or the other? So let's continue. Fortunately, farmers and others in the Greek yogurt business have found many methods of controlling and eliminating some or most environmental threats. So already this is suggesting that we're going to be discussing this aspect here, which represents the solutions that have been created by those involved in the business to address the environmental issues. So what are those possible solutions? We're going to skip this question for now. We'll come back to it later, but let's just try to get a sort of understanding of the text as a whole. The main environmental problem caused by the production of Greek yogurt is the creation of acid whey as a byproduct. So we do address one of the issues that arises from the production of Greek yogurt. But remember, the idea is to consider the solutions that have been created in order to tackle those issues. So the main focus is not necessarily a discussion of the issues themselves, but what is being done to address those issues. Because it requires up to 4 times more milk to make than conventional yogurt does, Greek yogurt produces larger amounts of acid whey, which is difficult to dispose of. So there is the problem. To address the problem of disposal, and this is a really nice transition from this idea into a more narrow discussion, farmers have found a number of uses for acid whey. Again, look at the language. Farmers have found a number of uses for acid whey. It's like a box, right? And what do you expect to find inside that box? What are the uses that farmers have found to address the issue of acid whey? Let's see if that's discussed later on. They can add it to livestock feed as a protein supplement. And people can make their own Greek-style yogurt at home by straining regular yogurt. Okay, so they here refers to the farmers, and that's fair. But people can make their own Greek-style yogurt at home by straining, regular yogurt. This really doesn't seem to address the environmental issue caused by the production of Greek yogurt. It just says that people can do it at home. So keeping in mind the context that we discussed earlier, we can actually address question number 2. Which choice provides the most relevant detail? Well, the most relevant detail is the one that's going to be contained within the context. If it is not contextually relevant, you can remove it. So what we're looking for, based on the context, is what are some of the uses that take a negative and make it into a positive. Let's see, convert it into gas to use as fuel in electricity production. All right, here we have a discussion that takes something negative and we turn it into a positive. So I think that option B is a pretty reasonable option. Let's take a look at the other ones. While sweet whey is more desirable as a food additive for humans. This just says that it is desirable to humans. It doesn't really talk about making something positive from a negative. So C can be eliminated because it is not contextually relevant. And then D, which provides an important element of their diet, again, it does not address the environmental issue. So the only reasonable option that we have here is B. Now, what else can they do? They can add it to livestock feed as a protein supplement. Excuse me, we've just covered this one. Let's take a look at the next one. If it is improperly introduced into the environment, acid whey runoff can pollute waterways, depleting the oxygen content of streams and rivers as it decomposes. All right, so that introduces another problem. Yogurt manufacturers, food scientists, and government officials are also working together to develop additional solutions for reusing whey. So one thing that you have to consider is the structural organization of these ideas. So I want you to take some time to look at question number 5, also the remainder of the questions. This lecture is already going on for quite a while, so unfortunately I'll have to stop it here. But do consider the remainder of the questions, and as always, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. You can find my contact information at www.andrehampshire.com. And you can also leave a comment. You can like this video. It would really help in the creation of the content here. In any case, I hope you've enjoyed this lecture, and I look forward to working with you in the next one. I'll see you then. Bye.